And now, I'm very excited to welcome to the stage for a view from the top conversation, the CEO of EQT, a founding member of the coalition, Toby Z. Rice. Toby, welcome to Axios House. Let's start big picture. Talk a little bit about why you're here, why Paige is here, what are your goals, what is the message you're bringing as you meet with folks in industry and policymakers in town today?
Yeah, we're excited to be here at Climate Week in New York City. You know, EQT is America's largest natural gas producer. We produce over 6 BCF a day of natural gas, which is the energy equivalent of almost 1 million barrels a day of energy. So why are we here at Climate Week? Because when you're talking about climate, you're talking about energy, and we want to be part of that conversation. You know, it's never been a more important time to produce energy in the United States, whether that is fueling our allies with our LNG and meeting the growing demand of our allies overseas, or powering this AI revolution that's taking place in our shores. But unfortunately, it's never been more difficult to produce energy in this country. Something that Ali was talking about, summarized very simply, it's really hard to get stuff built in this country. And for clean energy like natural gas production, we've built fewer miles of pipelines last year on an annual basis than we had in the prior 30 years. The last big pipeline that got completed took an act of Congress to make happen. It's never been more difficult. And when we look at the scoreboard, there's a need for a whole heck of a lot more. Emissions are still rising. Energy security of our allies is still crippled. Energy poverty is increasing, and we need to be doing a whole heck of a lot more. And that's why we started Paige, to reset the conversation and focus people on real, proven, scalable energy solutions. And our journey started with one question, not just asking what can our countries do within our borders, it's what can our countries do to lower emissions outside of our borders. And when you start with that question, some really amazing opportunities present themselves, like American natural gas. And the U.S. LNG is the world's biggest green initiative on the planet. Using our natural gas to replace foreign coal is one of the biggest things we can do to lower global emissions. And as a reminder, foreign coal is the biggest source of emissions on the planet. So if you care about emissions, care about that. U.S. LNG is really the only big major league thing that we can do to export our climate excellence around the world. And our opportunity here in the United States is massive. The United States, thanks to the shale revolution, has a natural gas resource base that would allow us to quadruple our LNG exports, exporting up to 60 BCF a day of natural gas. And to put that in perspective, the decarbonizing impact of doing that would have the equivalent of electrifying every vehicle in the country, putting solar panels on every house in America, and doubling U.S. wind capacity combined. This is a massive solution. And the last part, from an energy security perspective, 60 BCF a day of natural gas doesn't mean a lot to the normal person. But that's an amount of energy that's equivalent to adding over 10 million barrels a day of clean energy to the world stage. That is like adding another Saudi Arabia of clean energy. That's going to be a decarbonizing force that's going to bring tremendous peace and prosperity to the world while also lowering our global emissions.
You mentioned how on the construction, on the permitting issue, Ali seems to agree with you a little bit. There was another topic challenge he raised, which was methane emissions, which is a big piece of this. Talk a little bit about how you approach that at EQT about dealing with rising methane emissions.
Well, we think any natural gas-focused solution has to address the elephant in the room. And clearly, methane emissions is the biggest environmental concern about our industry today. And I'll tell you what we told Secretary Granholm 3 years ago. We said, if you're concerned over methane, keep the bullseye there, because we're going to knock methane emissions out of the park. And let me tell you a little bit about America's largest natural gas producer in our journey, because we are on the doorstep of being net zero by 2025. So first, people need to understand the massive operational efficiencies that have taken place in our industry, specifically at EQT. Drilling wells faster, completing wells more efficiently. We're producing record amounts of energy production in this country. We used to run over 2,000 rigs in this country. Now we're running around 600. Okay, so think about the amount of efficiencies that have taken place. Naturally, that will lower your emissions. But the biggest things that we can do is we understand where these methane emissions are coming from. And for natural gas producers, it comes from one piece of equipment called a pneumatic device. And we can replace that equipment with other non-emitting devices. And at EQT, we pulled out over 9,000 of these devices across our entire asset base. And we did it quickly in less than 18 months. And we did it cost effectively for a cost of less than $30 million. And when you do the math, the cost of this translated to less than $10 per ton. Super cost effective. And it was incredibly impactful. That initiative alone lowered our carbon footprint by over 300,000 tons.
Is this part of the message that delivering sort of to policymakers this week to help them understand that?
Absolutely. It's a key part of it. And the other part that's so important is to let people know these opportunities don't just lie within EQT. These opportunities exist across all other operators. And this industry is taking this very serious, and we're taking action. In the U.S. since 2020, methane emissions are down 23%. We're going to continue on that trajectory. And you see last year at COP, major announcements, over 40% of the world's production has signed up to have to the oil and gas decarbonization charter. That is going to require near zero methane emissions by 2030. Now, EQT is well along that journey. And like I said, we're going to be announcing net zero by 2025. And let me just tell you why this is important. We cannot let the emissions associated with making our product overshadow the emission reduction benefits when people use our product. Now, using EQT as an example, our carbon footprint after all the initiatives that we've done is around 200,000 tons. This is America's largest producer. 200,000 tons. That includes methane emissions. And people are saying that we should shut down natural gas development because of that carbon footprint. Well, understand this. That carbon footprint is going to produce an amount of natural gas when put on the world stage to replace coal is going to have a decarbonizing impact of negative 180 million tons. So 200,000 ton costs for 180 million ton benefit. This is one of the greatest deals in climate. And so to focus people on the benefits, we are going to be addressing methane emissions. And in our case at EQT, we're going to be net zero by 2025. Forcing the conversation on all the great work that we can do when people use natural gas to replace higher emitting sources.
So Ali wasn't allowed to talk about the election, but maybe you can. From your vantage point, what's your view of how policymakers are adjusting to the role of natural gas in this? Where do you think voters are? It's kind of an interesting topic in this campaign.
Well, let's start. This may sound like a political answer, but this is true. I've spent over a lot of trips going to D.C. over the last 24 months talking about unleashing U.S. LNG on the world stage. And we've met with politicians from both sides of the aisle. Let me tell you what we all agree on. Every politician wants more affordable energy. Every politician wants more reliable energy. Every politician wants cleaner energy. So we all agree on this. Now we need to open people some eyes up to making this happen. And as I mentioned, how hard it is to get pipelines built in this country, how to get natural gas infrastructure built, the talking point that we hear from DC is they say, Toby, you can't cry about how hard it is because America has never been a larger producer of oil and natural gas. And that is true. America has become the world leader in oil production. We have become the world leader in natural gas production. We are the world's #1 LNG exporter. But ask yourself a question. Look at the world around us and ask yourself, is that enough? Inflation is running rampant. Emissions are skyrocketing. Energy poverty for the first time in 20 years is increasing, and the security of our allies is crippled. Clearly, we are doing a lot, but we need to be doing a whole heck of a lot more. And the good news is the United States is blessed with two things: amazing resources, and even more importantly, amazing workforce and innovation. The oil and gas industry, to get those resources out of the ground and deliver the cheapest, most reliable, cleanest energy to the world stage. And it's incredibly important that we allow that to happen. And we've gotten into this situation. I think it's been real simple because as you heard from Ali, energy is incredibly political. And we have this situation where a lot of really head-scratching things are happening with energy. Like, why are we paying $30 for our natural gas in Boston when less than a couple hundred miles away, we're selling that same gas at EQT for a price of $3? Why are Americans' energy bills going up 30% if we are blessed with such these natural resources? And the reason is simple. I believe that political force has overwhelmed market forces, and that is what's led to some of these bizarre things happening in energy. What I would love to see happen is I'd love to see Politicians can continue to play an important role in this conversation, but we need to get back to a world where market forces drive the cheapest, most reliable, cleanest energy on the world stage. Now, how can the politicians play in this? Help us incentivize the market to make the most cost-effective energy hit the world stage. How are we incentivizing and valuing the reliable energy? How are we incentivizing the clean energy? There's a lot of different programs that are out there, but we need clear signals to the market. And then if you can engage this market, this industry, we will do amazing things like bring energy independence to America when 20 years ago, we were energy dependent, and now we're the energy powerhouse on the world stage. That's the type of heavy lifting that this industry can do, and we have the opportunity in front of us. We just need the ability to get the infrastructure built.
Some good marching orders for the folks in the crowd. We're about to get the hook here. I want to end on one fun thing. You're CEO of a massive energy producer, but you got a good story about how you got that job.
Yeah, so a little bit unconventional. We sold our business, Rice Energy. I grew that. This is the American dream story. For me, it was starting an energy business, an apartment in Pittsburgh with my three brothers. 10 years later, we grew that to a top 10 producer of natural gas. We sold that business to EQT in 2017. And the combination of Rice Energy and EQT is what created America's largest natural gas producer. I went back to the house, figured out what was next in life for me. Unfortunately, got a call from some shareholders, and they asked me to come back. And so after a pretty grueling proxy contest on July 19th, July of 2019, I was
You couldn't escape.
CEO of EQT. Yeah, that's right.
They pulled you back in.
It's a good thing.
Toby, thanks for being here. Thanks to EQT and Paige for making today possible. Stick around. The conversation continues.